来，哈瑞啊，先感谢二柱老师给我们这是系列讲座之2的啊，我们换了一个新的经理，专门为了您的讲座，今天早上真的是刚刚换的，一边这个还挺好，这个效果很好。我们讲的问题再问，好吗，大哥？啊。
This is working. Just a few seconds. Okay. My student Edison works for CIA, Customer Insight and Analytics of Scotiabank. And one day he told me, he said, my manager, Haiti, she's also your student. And I said, I know another person, her name is Christina. I think she also works in your department. And he said, Christina is my senior manager. I said, this is so weird. All three of us were once your students. And he said, Eric, you should quit your Scotiabank job and do this full time. I said, well, if I sign enough students today, I'll quit my job and do this full time. Okay, what's your backgrounds? Engineering and science? Business? Accounting? IT? I was an engineer. I was an engineer by training. I majored EE. I majored in electrical engineer. And would you like to hear a story about me getting a bank job with no experience? Yes? Okay. In fact, I'm going to tell you 3 stories. 3 stories about me, my first job, my first bank job, and my first bank job in Canada. So my first job. Oh, sorry, I forgot something. The name of the workshop is 银行就业提升班, and the English translation is talk your way into a bank job and talk your way up the success ladder. And that's a long name for a workshop. Do you mind if I ask you a personal question? Are you married? So you know how marriage works. Yeah, in case you forget, this is how marriage works. Marriage is a workshop. The husband work and the wife shop. Okay. So my first job, 25 years ago, I was just like you. You know, young and beautiful, out of college, and working as a technician in Heyman. Heyman is a German company. You know, every camera has a flash, and 70% of the flash tubes, photo flash tubes in the world are made in Heyman, in China. Yeah. So my job was to service and repair the production line. And the production line was very old. It's the technology of 1970. So it often broke down. And when the production line was down, hundreds of operators just sat around and doing nothing. So we had an engineer, and he's trying to troubleshoot the equipment with no manual, no diagram. And he was able to isolate the problem to a circuit board. And then he was stuck. And days went by, and then weeks. Our GM started to receive phone calls from the customers complaining about delay in shipments. And he was under a lot of pressure. I was the only engineer speaking English. So I volunteered to call Germany. I described the circuit board, and I asked if by any chance they had a spare part. And they said yes. And then I said, can you rush it to China? And they did. And the moment after we replaced the circuit board, we were in business again. Now, that engineer, he continued to troubleshoot the circuit board. And 2 weeks later, he actually traced the problem down to a tiny needle capacitor that had gone bad. And he fixed the circuit board. He was awesome. After that incident, I made a recommendation to the GM. I said, we should build a warehouse for spare parts. So I asked all the engineers working on the floor, I asked them to compile a list of parts that could go wrong. And then I faxed the list to Germany. They found most of the parts and they shipped them to China. With spare parts always in stock, we were able to reduce the production downtime to minimum. And 6 months later, I was promoted supervisor. And 1 year later, I was running the department. I was 24 that year. I was the youngest department manager in Heyman. Now, I still don't know how to fix that circuit board. But I figured out something at a very young age, and I want to share with you. Number one, you don't need to know everything to be a manager. And number two, communication is the most important skill. And there's no single skill more important to your personal and professional advancement than the ability to communicate. And number three, it's important to always have the big picture. You know, compared to most people who have the worm's view, like my engineer, and his view is about the circuit board. But my view is a bird's view. And I know that if the production discontinued every single day, it means big losses to the company. So that's why I became a manager after a year. And the engineer has worked for 20 years, and he is still an engineer. And there is a reason for that. And number four, a generalist has unique advantages over a specialist. So my recommendation to you is go wide before you go deep. You have very limited time, and there is a lot to learn. And you need to be strategic. You see, I probably knew less English than the secretary to our GM. And I had less experience than my engineer. Cynthia. So I knew less English than the secretary, and I had less experience than my engineer, but I knew a little bit of both. Just enough to solve the problem. So you realize strategically I combine English and engineering experience. I combined one with another one, and I became 11 times powerful. So that is really important. You know, if you know what to learn and combine them, 1 plus 1 could be 11. And 1 plus 1 plus 1 could be 111. So the biggest lesson I learned from the first job is this: anything is possible. The pigs can fly if they know which direction the wind is blowing. Right? So direction is very important. As Ninian rightfully said, direction is important because many people are going nowhere very fast. So that was 1995, and I was 27 years old. ING Bank. Many people know ING Direct. There's a bank in China, ING Bank, a European bank from the Netherlands.
Only ING to Canada. I know ING is
Right. Yeah, it's from the Netherlands. So ING Bank opened the first branch in China, and they were hiring loan officers. I majored in EE. I got no training, no experience in banking. I saw this opportunity in newspaper, and I decided to give it a shot. What I did, I sent in a handwritten resume in the morning, and at noon I got a phone call, and I went for the interview in the afternoon, and I started working the next day. And I know what you're thinking. I said, Eric, you lucky dog. I was lucky. The first week, I was supposed to review the loan application, and I asked my coworker, we have a few people with accounting background, so you know what I'm talking about. So I asked my coworker, I said, what's minority interest? 少数股东权益. What's minority interest? He looked at me from head to toe like I was a fraud. So he said, Eric, you don't know how to read financial statements. How did you get in? You know what? I want to ask myself the same question. How did I get in? Would you like to know?
You tell me.
Okay.
By God.
It's not because of God. Not what God is not blocking it. What happened? In the morning, I received. At noontime, I received a phone call asking me for an interview in the afternoon. I skipped lunch. There was no time for lunch. I rushed to the bookstore. I went to the English section, and I found a book about the commercial banking. And I flipped all the way to the end. There's no time to finish the whole book. So I flipped all the way to the end, and there's an appendix. I was lucky. I found a list of things a commercial bank should look for in a loan application to assess the credit risk and debt service capacity of the business. Stuff like, if you have accounting background, you should know what I am talking about. It's 3C: credit, character, and collateral. And current ratio, leverage ratio, and cash flow projection. I memorized the terms without understanding them. I went to the interview. The interview was very short. It was about half an hour long. The head of marketing was Dutch. He was very tall. He was almost 2 meters tall. He's from the Netherlands. And he tested my English. And I think he thought I was okay. And then he left me in a room with a quiz, with a test. He asked me to write down a list of things a commercial bank is looking for in a loan application to assess the credit risk and the debt service capacity. I said, bingo. Well, that's how I got the job. Now, we were often caught. Now, let me just finish this. I want to say you can get a job with no experience. All you need to do is to make it up with confidence. You need to at least try it. Because how would you know if you don't try it? And then, this is something I learned with some research. You can talk about something that you have never done, but you sound like a pro. We were often caught in this situation. No, we were often caught in this situation. You need to come up with something that you have never done, right? And I'm sure everybody has the first time. And I'm sure you can crack open that door with no experience but some second-hand knowledge. I'm sure with some research, you can talk about something that you have never done and sound like a pro. I have a friend. He never cooks in his life, but he watched cooking show and he studied recipe. If you had the chance to talk to him, you would think he is the master chef. And then I realized you can talk about something you have never done, but you sound like an expert. It's possible. Now, over the years, I have learned retail and commercial banking, the business models, the revenue streams, and products and services, distribution channels, customer service, customer relationship management, and credit risk management. I have done all this stuff, like secondhand smoke. No, that's how I learned it. Secondhand smoke. No degree, no designation, and I am doing all right. In fact, knowledge and experience like this, you cannot get in the school. There's no school teaching retail or commercial banking. I haven't found. So there's only one way. You either experience it or you learn it secondhand, like secondhand smoke. So the third story is this. So this is what I have just told you. The chicken egg situation, this is the question I get the most. Because most people say, how can I get in with no experience? Because you can't get a job without experience. And you can't get experience without a job. What do you do? I have just told you the answer. Okay. Now, my first job in Canada, I moved to Canada in year 2001. I couldn't find commercial banking job. And I realized investment banking is very hard to get in. And retail banking is where most of the jobs are. So I decided to switch from commercial banking to retail banking. But I had a challenge to convince CIBC. I had a challenge to convince CIBC that I knew what I was doing. That's number one. And number two, I was serious about the move from commercial banking to retail banking. And number three, I was able to pick things up quickly because, there's definitely something missing from my prior experience. So I did some research because my job required me to know a system from a company called Fair Isaac. Fair Isaac is a company name. So I went to the website of Fair Isaac. Every company has a section called About Us. So I went there, and there's a subheading. It says Milestone. So I clicked Milestone. So I scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then you see how the company was created and how it started. So that's where I saw these two lines. Fair Isaac was created by two Stanford students, Mr. Fair and Mr. Isaac. So two students create this company with $400, and one belief. They believe data, if used intelligently, can improve business decision. And the same year, they sent 50 letters to 50 top American banks, asking for an opportunity to explain a very new concept, credit scoring. Now, 50 years later today, credit scoring is not a new concept. Every single one of you has a credit bureau, and every single one of you has a credit score. And do you know that? That score was calculated by Fair Isaac all over the world. So that's how the company was created, with $400, one belief. And 50 years later, Fair Isaac became a public company traded on NASDAQ. It is a billion-dollar business today. And 99 of the top 100 banks in the world use Fair Isaac solution. So it's like a Microsoft in retail banking. So I found this, and I created a story out of this information, and I told CIBC, I said, look at my background. I had a very solid engineering background, and maths and statistics are my strong subjects. I have very intimate knowledge of data. And with my background, I believe I can help the bank make better decisions. It was very simple. And I told them that I was so sure of myself, I was so confident, that I convinced them. And they gave me the opportunity over other people who have more experience but less confidence. Let me tell you that this happened all the time. People will give you the opportunity over other people who have more experience but less confidence. So whenever you think, I don't have enough experience, make it up with confidence. And I will tell you how. Fake it. You need to fake it until you make it. Now, why bank jobs? My question to you. Why? Why banks? Maria said, 120,000. Not every job is that well paid. But why bank jobs? I've asked people, I got answers like this: stable, relatively well paid, you have good benefits. Some banks still have pension. And respectable profession, My son told his friends, my dad is a banker. And he was very proud. Well, you work in downtown core, suit and tie every day, and you feel good. What about this? And people say a bank is huge. As long as I can get my foot in the door, it will open a lot of doors for me, right? There's so many opportunities within the bank. So directionally, I think I want to get into a bank, and then I will calibrate and fine-tune, where I should end up. And number 3, I can get financial education for free because I'm so close to banking. I should know when the mortgage rate is the lowest, when should I lock in a rate, or should I change the variable to fixed, stuff like that, right? For the people who have IT background, and they will say, oh, that's where the data is. Now, do you know that Citibank actually employs more programmers than Microsoft does? That surprises you, doesn't it? Yeah. And each bank is a big spender of IT resources. Each bank has a huge IT department. And you have, they need business analysts, they need solution architects, they need developers, they need testers, they need project managers, they need PCO, project control officers. All kinds of jobs are needed in a bank. Now, if that is the case, who is hiring? Because every time I talk about banks, and people can only think of big five. Everyone is trying to look for opportunities in big five. But in fact, there are more organizations that are potentially hiring. So Big Five, besides Big Five, you also have the second tier banks. And you also have foreign banks. And you have trust companies. And you have mutual funds. You have security firms. Do you realize Canadian Tire, they are also in banking business? Oh, they do credit card.
Yeah, they're credit card, yeah.
And they also do mortgage. You know that, right? And PC Financial, they do pretty much everything, right? And there's also monoline. You know, they do only credit card, like MBNA, Capital One. They're from the U.S. and credit card is the only business they have. And you also have companies, they only do mortgage. And not just the banks, also there are vendors in insurance companies. Now, do you know CMHC? If you take a high ratio mortgage, you need to have your mortgage insured. And then you have CMHC, you have Genworth, they provide insurance. Home insurance, yeah.
I don't know, Manulife and London Life is a big life insurance.
That's true. And there are also, that's right. There are also home insurance, there are also mortgage insurance, there are also title insurance. Even insurance, and you know, has so many different types. So all these providers, they're hiring. What about Toyota Financial Services? What do? They finance your purchase of the car. They provide auto loans. It's exactly the same. In fact, I have two coworkers, and they came from Toyota Financial Services. It's a great company. And I know that they have the point system. After you have accumulated enough points, you can have a car for free. You know, I never had that working for Scotiabank. So all these great companies are potentially hiring. But when you look at one single company, I don't know if you can see it, right? They have very similar organizational chart. So you look at this organizational charts, the boxes and lines, you say, wow, it has so many different departments and so many teams within the department, you know, and there must be a position, there must be a place for me. Where do I fit in? What do you think? Peter, where do I fit in? You know? If you look at, okay, well, let's just look at it. Let's just look at it. Now, remember I talked about 3 pillars of banking business. Retail banking, commercial banking, investment banking. Well, retail banking's customers are like you and me, consumers.
In Canada, there are 5 big banks in Canada, right?
Right.
I think it's a mix for retail and commercial.
They have all business.
For example, RBC have retail, banking, commercial investment, a lot of departments.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So retail banking has consumers as their customers, and commercial banking, they deal with business customers. And you also have small business. You know, some people say small business are more like retail. Some people say, oh, no, they are more like commercial. So, and there's also investment banking. So these are 3 business lines, right? And they design products. But after that, there is a marketing department who manage channels, you know, and you need channels to take the products to the customers, right? And then you also have sales and service. Now you have the biggest channel in the branch, and all the PBOs, you know, personal banking officers, financial advisors, working in the branch. They are doing sales and service, or advisory sales and service. And there's also operation, and especially with retail banking, because many of the processes are automated. Right? So you need a support team to actually manage the vendors and, you know, manage the contracts. So that's operations. And then there's also IT that supports all these operations and make sure there's the availability, 24/7. And what about treasury and finance? What's the difference between the two?
Treasury and finance.
Yeah. Yeah. No, finance is more of accounting.
Oh.
So treasury is about money, cash, right? And accounting is about the books. So, they cannot, you have the check and balance. Whoever has access to cash cannot manage the books, right? So within the bank, now I always ask people, what does a bank do? Many, many years ago, the bank was not called banks. They were called deposits and loans, savings and loans. That's what a bank does. The bank takes deposits, make loans, right? They make money with other people's money. That's true. For every dollar loan they make, they only, put up 8 cents, and 92 cents is deposit.
Then use
Other people's money.
my money to earn more money, his money.
That's exactly true, right? And sometimes you have deposit. You also have loans. And you ask yourself, why? So you realize there are two sides of the business. First, you make loans. But for every single loan you make, you need to fund it, right? Well, of the $1 you net to the customer, 8 cents coming out of your own pocket, but you need to get 92 cents, right? So that's why you have branches and they take deposits. And if you don't have enough, you need to probably, raise funding from the capital market, like money market, capital market, to match the term, the currency, everything, right? To avoid the liquidity risk. So the treasury function is about funding, right? And the finance or accounting department, they're doing loan accounting, okay? So that is clear to you, and like any organization, they have a HR department.
It's not the accounting.
There's accounting, but it's very simple. Yeah. If you think of a manufacturing company, you have huge inventory, right? You have raw materials, you have work in progress, you have finished products. For a bank, the manufacturing company also, need to deal with money. But for a bank, the product is the money. So it's really, really simple, right? You don't need warehouse. In fact, in Canada, there's a take the kid to work day. I took my son to work when he is in grade 9. And he asked me, Dad, where's the money? He couldn't see the money. So now it's all electronic, all digital, right? So, but two most important control functions are audit, risk management. Now, if you deal with process and you know that, control is very important. Operational control, financial control are both very important. Otherwise, you will have problems like fraud or money laundering, all kinds of terrorist financing, all that you want to avoid. And there's another side, you need to manage the risk. There's operational risk, and there's credit risk, there's market risk, right? So these two functions are critical to the profitability of a bank, given reputation or image, publicity of the bank. Now, sitting at the top, and there is the CEO. So, if I were you, I would look at this organizational chart every day. Where do I fit in? Where do I fit in?
CEO.
Operation? Yeah. IT operation. You know what? It will surprise you. Will surprise you. So I'm going to take you to this slide. When you're looking for jobs, you are so occupied with knowledge, skills, and abilities, the KSA. And most people are so caught up in KSA and they completely forget business. Now, it doesn't matter what jobs you are applying for. Yes. And it doesn't matter what background you have. If you really want to work for the bank, I think everybody needs a good understanding of the business. Right? How do we organize ourselves to make money in this business? That's something very, very fundamental. Everyone needs to know. In fact, that is the only way that you can, put your knowledge, skills, and abilities in context. You need a lot of context to anchor your knowledge, to anchor your skills, to anchor your abilities. And without knowing, without understanding the context, it's very hard to tell people stories. Okay? So I'm going to show you 3 slides to explain the banking business. The first slide is about marketing. I'm going to use credit card as an example. How many people have credit cards? You all do. Now, plastic money. Now, you use it for convenience. What's that? Right. So that's a very good explanation. In fact, I was teaching 7th grade, about money. And this is what they told me. I said, debit card is you spend the money you have. Credit card is you spend the money you don't have. Oh, that's the best definition I have ever heard. Okay, so how many of you have had this experience? When you finish work, you go home, you go get your mail from the mailbox. And right away, you see several letters from MBNA, Capital One, TD, CIBC, and without even looking, you just throw them into the blue bin. How many people do that? Right? You all do that. Right? A lot. So that's how you behave as a consumer. Now, take off your hat as a consumer and put on your hat as a banker. Did you realize for every letter you throw into the blue bin, that's marketing money down to the drain? Right? So you're saying that's very bad targeting because you send letters to the people who have zero interest in the products because everything costs, right? And then you cook and you sit down, and before you have dinner, the phone rings, and you pick up the phone and you hear people talking. No, I don't want another credit card. I already have 10. So that's telemarketing. Now you realize direct mail and telemarketing becomes not efficient and become annoying, right? Annoying. And once again, the call centers and the people working over the phone, they cost. And for every phone call that consumers hang up, that's marketing money down to the drain, right? So now, if you look at the population we are trying to target, and then you have some people who showed interest, and they come through the door, TTD, through the door. So they respond to the marketing campaign, direct mail direct marketing. Now I ask you, what is a percentage in response rate that is acceptable to you, of 100 letters we send or 100 phone calls we make, what do you think is an acceptable number of people respond or actually fill out the application? What do you think? Okay, out of the 100 people we target, we send letters, we call, how many people actually apply?
Probably 1%.
1%? Oh, okay. What do you think, Peter?
Depending on what's the average income can make out of one customer, acceptable.
Yeah.
1% is higher or low.
Just give me a wild guess.
I'm thinking.
Give me a number. Give me a percentage.
0.5%.
0.5. 1. Who else?
10%.
10%. Yes.
40?
40%.
5%.
5%. So it's a big range. 3%. 3% is considered really good. Now, if you work in marketing and campaign management, database marketing, do you think there is opportunity to improve that response rate? Definitely. If you can just up that response rate from 3% to 3.2, 0.2% lift is a big deal. It is a huge deal. So what do? And you will study the customers and their needs, their profiles, and trying to understand them. Maybe you want to segment them by age, by gender, by geography, by education, by even status of immigrants or youth, right? So you're looking for information and data that can give you that, wisdom that you can use to improve this. Now, imagine all these people who actually apply for credit. It's credit risk department's job to make that decision. So because you have power, it's approve, decline, approve, decline, approve, decline, approve, decline. You make that business rule. And you realize this is the most important decision. Because people say 80% of the credit risk is assumed when you make this decision, approve, decline, 80%. After that, there's very little you can do to reduce the risk and reduce the losses. So what do you think is a acceptable approval rate of the people who apply? What is the percentage that you approve?
80%.
80%. Anyone? Just give me a percentage. 60? Okay. That gentleman? What is the acceptable approval rate? You? Yes. Oh, but you don't have to. I will call your name. I will name names. What do you think? Give me a percentage. The question is, what is the acceptable approval rate of the people who apply for credit? Yeah. Give me a wild guess. 50. Yeah, he's about right. 50% is considered a normal approval rate. Yeah. So in fact, the people who want the credit the most, and you don't even want them, because they're very high risk, right? Yes.
So approval rating is it retail or?
Retail. It's a credit card example. It's a credit card. So of the people who accept, now if I may ask you, how many credit cards do you have? Yeah. Two? None? Oh, not many. How many? Okay, you have many, but you only use two. You? Three. How many people have five? No, I have 5. How many people have 8 or more? You know, average Canadian has 5 credit cards. Average Americans, they have 7 or 8. But you know that you probably use only 1 or 2. I use one for gas, and I use the other one for meals. Yeah. So that means the remaining credit cards you have are inactive. Whoever issued that credit card, they don't want to be in that position, right? So my question to you is, what is a good, acceptable active rate of the people who apply, of the people you approved? What do you think is an acceptable active rate? You have to keep them active. You have to lure them, you know, attract them, or encourage them to spend more. Yeah? 50? Yes?
The rich are only the 3%. Those are the people that spend a lot, right?
Yeah.
So they have to pay their debt, and then the credit card market.
Right.
And the bank will ask you to give you more credit.
Right.
So they want to have someone that can pay them the money back.
Yeah.
Instead of default and buy a lot.
Right. What about the other people? What do you think is a active rate? 20%? Oh, that's too low. That's too low. Yeah. It's between 70 to 80%. But that's of the total number of cards, right? Because there's always attrition, and people go to your competition, and then you take them out, and you keep adding more. So the running active rate is about 80%. Now, all of those people who are active, how many people in a room actually pay interest on your credit card? Anyone?
Paid before, yes.
Yeah, but maybe that's an accident. Maybe you forgot, right?
Yeah, actually sometimes it's 31 days free.
Yeah.
After that,
Yeah.
if the letter is like 5 days late, then
Yeah. Or even a day late, you need to pay interest for the full balance. So almost every single one of you never pay interest on your credit card. You know, for the bank, you are not profitable at all. You have good credit, but the bank is not making money on you. Now, it's a challenging business, credit card. Can you imagine credit card is still not profitable in Japan? And it's barely profitable in China. There is only one bank, China Merchant Bank. The credit card is profitable. Because in Chinese or Japanese culture, it's a shame that you use credit card to finance something that you cannot afford. Right? And that's the kind of credit culture. In Canada, it's perfectly normal. And in fact, a lot of small business owners, they use credit card to bridge, the gap. They have their own account receivable. For them, it's perfectly okay to finance this for a month or two, even though they're paying very high interest. So now give me a percentage. For the people who, like you, never revolve your bonds, never pay interest, you're called transactors. You use credit card just for the convenience. And for the people who revolve the balance and pay interest, they're revolvers. What is the revolving rate? How many people actually pay interest on their credit card? 10? 10? Huh? 7? 70. He's very close. It's about 70, 75%. Can you imagine? It's true. 75%. Personal and small business combined. Now,
credit card holder.
yeah, credit card holder, small business sometimes the individual and the business are one, the same. It's not a limited liability company. So in that case, let me tell you this. Credit card business is the most profitable business for the bank in North America. Now, even more so. In China, they use credit card as a starting point. And then they want to sell you a mortgage and car loan and, you know. It's different. That's right. So you need to be aware of that. And Central and Latin America is even more different. Let me tell you how much we charge them. In certain markets, we charge the interest rate of 70%, 70%, even 100%. The loss rate is 20%. And when I first heard that, what? How can you make money? But we charge 100% interest rate. It's a different market, different game.
It's very easy.
Now, sounds easy, but not quite. Because of those people who revolve the bonds, there's a chance they cannot pay back the principal. So those people will go bad. That's the bad debt. Only the remaining goods are the foundation for credit card business profitability. What is a bad rate? What do you think is a normal bad rate of the total portfolio? Give me a percentage. 1%? 50? 15 or 50? 50. That's too high. That's too high. It's about 5-6%. 5-6%. So now, when I first joined retail banking and people were training me, I said, Eric, retail banking is really simple. Credit card business is very simple. Find the good customers and keep them. Now if you're telling me it's simple, I want to kill you. Because we start with this population, and then we have only 3% who respond, and then 50% you approve, 80% active, right? And then 75% revolve, and then you have to take out 5% bad. Is it easy? It's not easy. And you realize every step of the way, there are a lot of decisions to be made. And at a very, very detailed individual level, right? Because every time you check out your groceries or your clothes or shoes, you swipe the card at the point of sale, there's a transaction. It's actually calling for a decision. Because at that point, the bank can't approve or decline the transaction, right? So because of the nature of retail banking, we're talking about large volume, and the size of the loan for each is tiny, right? And there's no way you can manage the business manually. Everything is automated, and every decision is made by a computer model. There's a lot of math, science, modeling behind the scene. And that's where you guys will come into play. You can play all kinds of different roles. Any question on this side before I move on? No? So that's marketing. What about risk management? Now, I'm going to give you a crash course about credit scoring. And all of you have a credit score. Do you know what your behavior score, credit score is? 700? That's about that, right? 750? Oh, that's very good. Really good. Now, these scores are in different scale, but it doesn't matter. Let's say the higher the score, the better the credit. Okay? Now, the difference between different credit culture in China or Japan or Asian countries versus America is this. good credit, 有信用. In China means you don't borrow at all. And here, you borrow as much as you want. But make sure you always repay, right? So that's the difference. Now, the higher the score, the better the credit. And you can translate this into the odds ratio. And the horse racing, if you go to casino, there's odds, right? 那个叫赔率. Now, let's look at this score. Credit score 150, that has a odds ratio 1:1. So for every bad, there's a good. So the ratio of goods to bad is 1:1. So then, what is the probability of that segment going bad? 50%. So because it's 1 divided by 2, 50%, right? So let's say, move up 10 points. So now it's 160. The odds ratio is 2 good to 1 bad. What is the possibility of this segment going bad? 1 divided by 3. So that's 33%. So 170 odds ratio 4:1, and it's 1 divided by 5. That is 20% chance going bad. That's easy, right? So now, if I just group the score bands into A, B, C, and D. Once again, A is the best and D is the worst. Now, my question to you is, who are our best customers? Now, this is one of my interview questions. I got many people.
A, B, C.
Or D. Which one is our best customer?
B.
Who said D? D or B? B. Okay, B for boy. Why? Why not A?
Excuse me. Can you explain how to understand best? Best means to cut to back.
Now, could you please define it for me?
I think best, perfect. To back.
That's right. So the bank is in the business to make money. So best meaning the most profitable.
Yeah, the bank only care about
Profit.
profit. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so why not A?
Never money, never borrow money.
Yes. Yeah, you.
No offense, but I think this is the reason we're here is for resume preparation, resume modification, personalization.
We'll get there.
Is this what we learned? This has been like 2 hours already.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah.
I think that's the focus that we're.
Yes, it will be the focus, but without context, it's very hard to talk about something through thin air. Okay? Just bear with,
Sorry, but
yeah,
is
bear with
this
me.
relate to the
It is highly
This
related.
is focused on what you're doing right now.
Just bear with me. If you don't like this, you can leave.
No, I'm
Okay?
just saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the reminder.
No problem.
Okay, now, so you said B. That's about right. It's actually B and C plus. So these are the rebuffers. And they cannot pay the full balance. For the credit card business, you can only pay the minimum, which is 3% of the balance. If you carry 1,000 balance, you only need to pay $30. And then you are always current, right? So let me ask you this. Who are these people? Who cannot pay the full balance, who can only afford the minimum payment, but always pay on time? Who are these people? Can you profile these customers?
Relatively young,
Dumb people? Is it?
steady income.
Well, these people are not stupid. Yeah, they do this only if they don't, without option, right?
They have student loans.
Right. Right. So it could be small business owner because they have seasonal income, or it could be just no income people and They actually need to borrow to pay for milk and bread and diapers. But I just want to make you aware of this. C plus is actually the most profitable. But think about these people if there's anything that change in their financial condition. I mean, it's getting worse. If one of the two loses the job or anything happens, the C plus can easily become C minus right away. So we're walking a fine line between C plus and C minus, and you need to watch them every day and then every minute. It's challenging. It's highly, highly challenging. So with that, I'm coming to here. Now, we went from marketing to risk management, now accounting. Now, remember we said a bank take deposit, make loan, right? Now, you have made loans. Knowing nothing else, do you think you will get every penny back? Why not? Now, you make loans of, let's say, $1 billion. Do you know if you can get every penny back? No, right? No, because the bank is actually in the risk business. And starting from the day you grant people credit, you already know. You already know. There is a possibility of these loans not being paid back. So, and you know that today, and before you see the losses. You know that is a sure thing, right? So for that reason, and for accounting purpose, you need to be very conservative. So it's just like a receivable. Are you in accounting? You're in accounting, right? A little bit. Who is in accounting? Okay. So if you carry receivable on your balance sheet, and you know that there's a chance that people will not pay you, right? So you need to, yes, you need to provide allowance, right? So we just spoke about this. You have the probability. Without knowing anything, if you know the possibility, you should provide for this. And that will become the allowance for credit losses. And every fiscal year end, you need to recalculate the allowance for credit losses. And your portfolio can improve or can get worse. If it's stable, the ACL number 2 is the same as ACL number 1. Then you don't need to provide more. And if it's getting worse, ACL number 2 will be greater than ACL number 1, and then you need to provide for credit losses. That's provision for credit losses. And there's also real actual losses, because when you write off loans after 6 months, those are losses. But there's also a small chance that you can recover. So that's a deduction. So PCL is a big part of loan accounting. And you need to accurately estimate the allowance and provide for the allowances, because ACL is sitting on your balance sheet, but PCL is on your income statement. This drives your profit up and down, and this drives your share price up and down. So you realize everything is working, everyone is working around this business at a different angle, right? But you touch the business in a very different way. But the key to that work and that job is you have to understand the fundamental of this business. Now, how many people are in the business of data, report, model, strategy? broadly speaking, a lot of you, right? Do you do reports? You need data to do reports, right? So you're involved in this in many ways. And I heard this story about big data. How many people have heard of big data? Yeah. Big data is like teenager sex. Everybody talks about it. Nobody has done it. Everybody thinks everybody else has done it. So everybody says he has done it. And that is true. That is true. Big data is not yet happening. But we are at a different stage. I think when you automate the process, you have a system. When system runs, it accumulates a lot of data. And you need to organize those data. You need to structure the data to save the space, right? And lots of data, and you need to turn the data into information, information into knowledge, and knowledge into wisdom. Now, there are two kinds of wisdom. First kind is understand the history, the past. Now, people say, why? What happened? Why do you want to know what happened? Why? Well, because that's learning, because that's the kind of learning for you to forecast, predict into the future. Assuming history will repeat, right? The same pattern will continue. So reports is all about descriptive analytics. You're trying to describe what happened in the past. Now, the best way to describe any analytical project is this. You just need to remember 3 questions. What, why, and then what? What happened? Why did it happen? And then what can we do about it? Going into the future. So what happened is the very basic reporting. You're just describing the trend and drivers, right? And trend is what happened, driver is why it happened, right? With that understanding, I'm trying to see if this continues and plus something else, this is what is going to happen next month, next quarter, next year. Is that clear? That's quite clear. So modeling is all about using the past variable and trying to predict what's going to happen into the future. And one of the outcome of the model is behavior score. Because behavior score actually rank order the customers from the best to the worst. But behavior score doesn't make decision. The score itself doesn't make decision. You understand that, right? They're used just to rank order the customers from the best to the worst. What is making decision is this cutoff. You get that? So if I set cutoff at 190, anything below will be declined, anything above will be approved. But if I just change this a little bit, if I raise the cutoff, I will get better quality, but less quantity, right? But if I lower it, I will get less quantity, more quantity, but lower quality. So cutoff is making the decision. So if I keep going here, the strategy is all about setting the cutoff. The modeling is about designing a very predictive score. And the score is trained by using structured data. So you see the value chain, but you see you could have different teams and different kind of people working along the chain. If you have strong database background, if you major in computer science, probably you work as a DBA, right? And you design the data model, and you manage the data warehouse and stuff like that. But then, if you're a data analyst, you're trying to make use of the data, and you try to explain the trend, and you try to, bring some insight to the management. And there's a special group of people with statistical background, and they can use the data to come up with a highly predictive model. And there's also strategy development team. They come up with some business rules to calibrate and where the business is going. Is that clear? That's quite clear. So that is our goal. Get a job. Yes?
Can I add something?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought she was saying that the lady, the principal, was saying that you're going to teach us how to small talk and how to do good presentation skills and all that. What did that she introduced? She said that you.
Yeah. Today?
Yes.
That's a different course.
But with this, she was just saying that you're going to do small talk and presentation.
I am doing it now.
How do you small talk with the location?
With what?
White community.
Oh, okay.
In your
Okay.
CO2 community.
With the white community. Okay, we'll get there. Now, all of you attend the workshop with one and only objective, which is to get a job. So, through 10 weeks of study, and you can easily get lost in the details. You can easily get lost in the data, charts, numbers, tables. But don't you ever forget why you're here, which is to get a job. So it's important for you to concentrate and focus on your learning and make sure everything you do, you can translate into a better chance of getting hired. So for that, I want to show you this. What actually stands between you and the job? What do you think? Lack of experience, you said? Experience? Oh, lack of experience. I want to, everyone is looking for a silver bullet, a magic solution, a simple solution to a complicated problem, right? Let me try to simplify this. What stands between you and the job are 2 pages and an hour. Is that clear? Is the resume and the interview. Oh, rather, your performance, your 1 hour performance in the interview. Now, this can be daunting, can be a huge undertaking, but you can reduce this down to 2 good pages, 1 good performance. I think if you do that, you should get the job. So let's start with this. So through the 10 weeks, and we will learn together. But make sure you will be able to convert or translate all your learnings into the resumes and 7 stories. Now, people say, this is how we learn. You listen, you read. This is the input, a lot of input. Let me tell you this. Input doesn't matter. It's the output that matters. Do you agree with me? Right? So the output is writing and speaking. So you have to write well. You have to speak well. Doesn't matter how much you learn. If you cannot write, if you can't speak properly, it doesn't matter. It's not meaningful. So we need to be very focused and very strategic and very practical at the same time. So this is the deal. This is the plan. 10 weeks from now, or maybe even sooner, you will make sure you will jump off the page. You will come alive. And you will stand out from the crowd. And you will put on a big, good performance. You will impress the employer. and you will influence that hiring decision. That's the goal, right? Is that a goal? So if you agree, if we have clear mind, let's just go further. What is a resume? I call the resume of 2 pages of begging for attention. Do you agree with me? It's 2 pages begging for attention. And I can't forget the other day, it's morning time, I walk out of Union Station, I saw this guy. He's all dressed up, suit and tie, with a huge resume, cut out of cardboard, hanging around his neck. And I walk closer, I take a look. All it has is this. It says, under his name, it says, please notice me and please like me. Think about it. Is that what your resume is trying to say? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So does it make sense that you see a 7-page resume, 5-page resume? And some people argue because I'm technical. So, yeah. A resume is nothing more than a little advertisement. To get attention, to make yourself likable. So, knowing that, we realize, unfortunately, most people's resume is just plain, boring text. Now, let me ask you, how many of you enjoy reading your own resume? I know I don't enjoy mine. We don't. And there's no shame admitting that. But, here's a big but. If you don't enjoy reading your resume, how do you expect the employer to read your resume and feel excited? Now, you have to look good on paper. You have to make the important interesting. Right? It's obviously very important to you. It's your personal document. Now, it's interesting, the other day I was talking to this student. He's an accountant. Now, there are always people coming up to me and say, Eric, this is my resume. Can you make it better? I said, no. They're not my students. I said, no, because how can I make it better? I don't even know you, right? I can correct typos and grammars, but that's not what I do, and that doesn't help you either. So a resume has to be created out of a much bigger context. Has to be created with a very good understanding of yourself. So with that, I was talking to John. I said, you know what? Today, I meet you in person. So I want you to tell me more about it. Because otherwise, if you ask me to cut the resume, there's nothing to cut. Because it's already bare bone. Very little. I need more to cut, to polish, right? I need more material to design a good piece of resume. The most important thing is this. Most people, they create their own resume by doing this. They copy and paste the keywords and key phrases from the job description into their resume. Because they say, no, I match, right? I fit in. That doesn't work because everybody does that. That's number one. Number two, this is my conversation with John. I said, John, you're an accountant. I know what an accountant is supposed to do. I wrote that job description. I know it. I don't need you to tell me that. Don't tell me your responsibility. I already know that. I don't need you to tell me what I already know. So don't tell me what you did or you're supposed to do. Tell me what you did well. right? Don't focus on the work. You have to focus on the impact of the work. Don't write your activities in the resume. Write the results of your activities. You see a big difference in that? There's a huge difference between the two. So once I saw John, I asked him to talk. He told me a lot more. He provided me with a lot richer context. And then I said, John, I'm glad I met you. Because now I realize you're 10 times better than your resume. That's fortunate, that's also very unfortunate. Do you realize that? Because the resume is not helping you, is not doing justice to you. And I told John, what if we don't meet? What if we didn't meet? Here's the risk. You should be scared by the thought that what if you never get a chance to meet the employer because of your resume? Because your resume is killing your chances. Yeah? So now I understand a resume is very critical. You have to make sure you look good on paper. And that's the only way you can have an interview opportunity. But once you get that, we have the interview. You have to look good, you have to speak well in person. Now, make no mistake, an interview is a performance. How many people think an interview is a performance? Is a performance. If you try this long and hard, if you try to understand the organization and the hiring manager, 80% of his questions are predictable. And if you know that, you will come up with very good stories to answer those questions. Now, did you get this question before? Tell me about yourself. It's very likely the first question. And right away people, because they think this is what is being asked. So they start telling people about themselves. But this is the key. They have no interest in yourself. And we should say, here is what you want, and here's what I have. Look, I have exactly what you want. And always remember this, it's never, even if they're asking you to tell them about yourself, it's never about you. It's always about them. So you have to talk about you in the context of what they need and what you can give them. Do you understand that? So this is your plan. I mean, I'm not saying this is the words you will say, but this is something you're trying to get at, right? Here's what you want, and here's what I have. Look, I have exactly what you want. Any questions before I move on? What's your background? Science. I can tell. I can tell. Because if you study humanity, you will not ask this question. Because you're analytical, you're skeptical. So why 7? Because 8 are too many and 6 are too few. But if you think about that interview, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, 7 questions are about right. I just pick a random number. 7 questions, 7 stories. Okay, yep. Tell me about yourself.
Talk about yourself.
Mhm.
The generally started, right?
No.
So that's what I got your point, right?
So tell me about yourself is completely open. That's why it's a dangerous question, because you can be all over the place, and then you don't matter at all. So you have to close it in a way that you have to structure your answer along this structure. Here's what you want, and here's what I have. Look, I have exactly what you want. So you will start or repeat, and this is what you want, and
Straight to the job requirements, right?
Not literally, but based on your deep understanding. If you know these are the 2 and 3 most critical things you're looking for, talk about those. You can even talk about 1 if you can just do it very, very well, right? Because that's just the beginning of the question. You have to make your answer highly, highly relevant. Yes? Yeah. They want everything. It's true. A job description has the requirements, and they say minimum requirements. And I can tell you that right away. It's not minimum. It's maximum. It's maximum requirements. And there are some must-have, and there are also a lot nice to have. And you can trick those. You can take them away and leave the essential ones that you have to have. Or if you don't have, you're able to contain that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So only see position in that same
Mm-hmm. Say that.
So for example, we will look at the job description.
Mm-hmm.
For example, program manager,
Mm-hmm.
junior or senior,
Mm-hmm.
all the description are the same regarding which requirement. So you wouldn't really tell
Mm-hmm.
what do you really want.
Yeah.
You just try to match everything.
Oh, there could be people are lazy. You know what? This is the best advice I got from the HR. And they said, just change the verb. Instead of doing, you can say managing, you can say needing. Seriously, they say change the verb. And then you can use this manager's job description for senior manager. That's telling you a lot of this, hiring manager doesn't have the full say. HR will say, oh, we need to reevaluate that job because of the verbs you use don't look like a senior manager. You have to use, bigger word to make it a senior manager position. And I can tell you this, some of the job descriptions are badly written. You almost need to rewrite that job description. Otherwise, because it's misleading, and you're going in the wrong direction, right? It's easy. It's easy to find out what is it that they really want. Just look at the similar jobs from different organizations, or maybe within the same team, same department. I will look at, if I apply for an analyst job, I will look at a manager's job description, the senior manager, or the directors. Just so I have the whole list, how this team is organized. What are the key relationships between him and his peers? And in fact, 360 relationships. How many? That's the only way you can put this in context, am I right? Yeah. So that's why it's not, you can't just take a job description literally and then try, to match it. And it requires some analysis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and before you go to the interview, you should already have an understanding. Whether it's accurate or not is a different thing, right? But I agree with you. You can always follow up with, this is my understanding and this is what you need, and tell me if, I'm mistaken. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Yeah. The two kinds of problems I see from the classroom, because people like you, experienced professionals, you have a lot. You have the nice trouble of snacking from too many. I've also have new fresh graduates coming out of school and they don't have any, right? So you need to deal with both. And the only way to be accurate and to the point is you just have to know that what is it that they're looking for and what are the key things. That's the only way you can focus on your presentation. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll get there. Okay, so that's that. And then the mock interviews. How many people think mock interview actually help? Yeah. You know, many people say, I don't like interview, I don't like meetings, I don't like, it's stressful. It's very stressful kind of situation. That's exactly the reason we want to do the mock interview. Because we need to design the workshop in a way that if it's life or death, you might as well, experience it and know what can go wrong, what you're missing and what you're lacking, so you can improve it, before you go to the life or death, the real one, right? So it's interesting. It's usually the last 3 sessions we do this mock interview. I invited my co-workers, the industry experts, to pretend to be the interviewers, and then so we sat on this side and the students sat on the other side, and once again all dressed up. Oh boy, were they nervous. They were so nervous. Right away and they became very nervous. The funny thing is we were not even real. And then I said, this is good. Because we can replicate, we can create that, almost real situation, and I want you to meet with that kind of situation head on and see how you perform, how you behave. And then lots of people will observe and give you suggestions, so you will know, oh, this is what I did wrong, and that's something I can improve on. So it's highly, highly effective. One thing I always tell people is it's already very difficult to get an interview. You don't want to blow it, right? You cannot afford to. There are 1,000 ways to blow an interview, and there's only one way to win it, to nail it. So my suggestion to you is to write down your stories, seriously, word for word, and memorize them by heart, like songs, like singers memorize their songs. And then you practice at home and practice in the classroom and practice many, 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 many times until you internalize the stories. Because one thing you know too well, that is, you cannot leave this to chance. You will leave nothing to chance. You will take things in your hands. Now, like anything,